The ship appeared above Earth on a Tuesday morning. It was massive, nearly 3 kilometers long. It blocked out the sun over the Pacific Ocean and cast a shadow that stretched across 3 time zones. Dr. Sarah Webb stood in the United Nations Emergency Command Center in Geneva. She watched the screens along with 50 other world leaders and scientists. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. The ship did not attack. Instead, it sent a message. The message was simple. It was translated into every human language within seconds. We are the Galactic Concord. We come in peace. We wish to meet your leaders. 3 days later, the first alien delegation landed in Geneva. Sarah was part of the welcome committee. She had spent her entire life studying biology. She had imagined what aliens might look like. She was not prepared for reality. The first alien to step off the shuttle was Ambassador Vorath of the Kethari. He stood over 2 meters tall. His body was covered in hard black plates like an insect. He had 4 arms and 2 legs. His head was triangular with large compound eyes that reflected the light like broken mirrors. When he moved, his joints clicked together like stones. Behind him came others. The Slith were serpentine creatures with no legs. They moved by sliding across the ground on their muscular bodies. Their scales shimmered in colors that changed with their moods. The Gorath were massive beings made of living rock and crystal. They stood 3 meters tall and weighed several tons each. The ground cracked under their feet when they walked. There were 9 other species in the delegation. Each one was stranger than the last. The Veen were blind creatures that saw through sound. The Morathi had 4 brains and could think about multiple problems at once. The Trellics were beings of pure energy contained in magnetic fields. Sarah felt very small standing next to them. Very fragile. Very human. Ambassador Vorath spoke first. His voice was harsh and clicking, but the translation device around his neck made his words clear. We have watched your species for some time, he said. You have developed faster than light communication. This triggered our detection systems. According to Concord law, any species that reaches this level of technology must be evaluated. Evaluated for what? Asked Secretary General Chen, the leader of the United Nations. For membership in the Galactic Concord, Vorath replied. Or for management. Sarah did not like the word management. She did not like it at all. The evaluation began the next day. The Concord scientists set up equipment in a large stadium in Geneva. They tested everything. They tested human strength. They tested human speed. They tested human senses. They tested human intelligence. The results were not good. A human male in peak physical condition could lift about 200 kilograms. A Gorath child could lift 5,000. Human running speed topped out at about 40 kilometers per hour. The Slith could move at over 100. Human eyes could see a narrow band of the light spectrum. The Morathi could see everything from radio waves to gamma rays. The Concord scientists wrote everything down. They whispered to each other in languages their translation devices did not share. They looked at the humans the way a person might look at an insect. Curious, but not impressed. Sarah overheard one of the Kethari scientists talking to Vorath. Her translation device was more advanced than the aliens knew. She had modified it herself. They are remarkably weak, the scientist said. No natural armor, no claws, no venom. Their teeth are flat and useless for combat. Their senses are dull. They cannot see in the dark. They cannot hear ultrasonic frequencies. They cannot detect electromagnetic fields. What about their minds? Vorath asked. Average. Perhaps slightly below. They have no telepathic abilities, no hive connection, no distributed consciousness. Each one is alone in its own head. How did they survive on their planet? The scientist made a gesture that Sarah had learned meant confusion. We do not understand it. Their planet is a death world. The gravity is high. The atmosphere is corrosive. The weather is violent and unpredictable. There are thousands of species that could kill them easily. And yet they became dominant. Vorath clicked his mandibles together. Luck, perhaps, or they had help from a more advanced species that has since left. It does not matter. They are clearly not ready for full membership. Sarah felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her face calm. She had learned long ago that showing anger was showing weakness, and humans could not afford to show any more weakness right now. The final evaluation took place 1 week after first contact. All the world leaders gathered in the UN General Assembly Hall. The Concord delegation stood at the front. Ambassador Vorath read the results. The human species has been evaluated according to Concord standard protocols, he announced. Physical capability score, 2.3 out of 100. Sensory capability score, 4.1 out of 100. Mental capability score, 31.2 out of 100. Technological development score, 12.7 out of 100. Overall galactic readiness index, 12.6 out of 100. He paused. His compound eyes swept across the room. Based on these scores, the human species is granted provisional observer status within the Galactic Concord. This is the entry-level tier. Humanity will be assigned a development advisor to assist with technological and social advancement. Access to Concord technology will be limited to deprecated systems only. Humanity will not have voting rights in Concord matters. Humanity will not be permitted to colonize any world beyond its home system without Concord approval. Secretary General Chen stood up. And if we refuse this status? Vorath tilted his head. The gesture meant amusement. Then you will be classified as an uncontacted species. All Concord interaction will cease. You will be left alone to develop, or to destroy yourselves. History suggests the second outcome is more likely for Death World species. There was a long silence. Sarah watched the faces of the world leaders. She saw anger. She saw fear. She saw humiliation. But she also saw something else. Something the aliens could not read on human faces because they did not understand human expressions. She saw patience. She saw calculation. She saw the look of people who had decided to play a very long game. Secretary General Chen bowed his head. We accept provisional observer status. We are grateful for the Concord's guidance. Vorath clicked his mandibles in approval. A wise decision. Your development advisor will arrive within 1 lunar cycle. We expect full cooperation. The delegation left 2 days later. Their ship rose into the sky and vanished into faster-than-light travel. Earth was alone again. But everything had changed. Sarah was called to a meeting that night. It was held in a bunker deep beneath the Swiss Alps. Only 12 people were invited. They represented the true powers of Earth, not the public governments, the shadow councils that had guided humanity for centuries. General Marcus Stone of the United States spoke first. They think we are weak. They think we are stupid, added Director Yuki Tanaka of Japan. They think we are no threat, said Minister Alexei Volkov of Russia. Sarah listened. She had been invited because of her expertise in biology. She was the one who had modified her translation device. She was the one who had overheard the alien conversations. They made a mistake, she said quietly. Everyone looked at her. They measured us by their standards, she continued. They looked for claws and armor and venom. They tested our strength and speed and senses, but they never asked the right question. What question? Asked Secretary General Chen. Sarah smiled. It was not a nice smile. They never asked how a species with no claws, no armor, no venom, poor senses, and average intelligence became the dominant life form on a death world. The room was silent. They never asked about our history, Sarah said. They never asked how we killed the mammoths and the saber-toothed tigers and 100 other species bigger and stronger than us. They never asked about our wars. They never asked how we survived ice ages and plagues and famines. They never asked what makes humans dangerous, and what does make us dangerous, General Stone asked. Sarah looked at him. Her eyes were cold and hard. We do not give up. We do not stop. We adapt. We learn. We find weaknesses and exploit them. We invented tools because we had no claws. We invented fire because we had no fur. We invented weapons because we were weak. Every disadvantage made us more creative, more dangerous. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the stars were shining. They gave us observer status. They think they are managing us, but they just gave us access to their stations, their networks, their technology. They put us everywhere because they think we are harmless. They will let humans clean their floors and haul their cargo and translate their languages. They will ignore us completely. She turned back to the room. And while they ignore us, we will watch. We will listen. We will learn everything. Their weaknesses, their secrets, their technology, and, when the time is right, we will show them exactly what Earth has been hiding. General Stone leaned forward. What are you proposing? I am proposing that we play along, accept our status, be humble, be quiet, be invisible. Let them think they were right about us. And while they are not watching, we build. We prepare. We become something they never imagined we could be. The 12 most powerful people on Earth looked at each other. Then, one by one, they nodded. That night, the Whisper War began. Earth smiled at the Concord and said, "Thank you for your guidance." And behind that smile, humanity began to prepare for the day when the galaxy would learn the truth. The aliens had looked at humans and seen weak, fragile, harmless creatures. They had never imagined that those same creatures had hunted mammoths to extinction, had survived ice ages through sheer stubborn refusal to die, had built weapons capable of destroying their own planet and then chosen not to use them. The Galactic Concord had made a mistake that would change the history of the galaxy. They had assumed that weakness meant harmless. They were about to learn how wrong they were, but not yet. First, humanity had to wait, had to watch, had to learn. The Concord had been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. Humanity had only just discovered they were not alone. The gap was enormous, but humans were very good at closing gaps. They had done it before. They would do it again. Sarah Webb returned to her laboratory that night. She had work to do. She had alien biology to study. She had secrets to uncover. And she had a species to protect. The stars were watching. And somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between galaxies, something else was watching too. Something that would make the Concord's arrogance look like wisdom. Something that would make humanity's true nature not just useful but necessary. But that was a problem for another day. For now, Earth played the role of the humble student, the grateful primitive, the harmless observer, and behind closed doors, in bunkers and laboratories and secret facilities around the world, the real work began. The Concord thought they knew what Earth was hiding. They thought the answer was nothing. They could not have been more wrong. 30 years passed like water through open fingers. The galaxy continued to spin. The Concord continued to rule. And humanity continued to smile and bow and say, "Thank you for your guidance." Commander Lissa Chen stood in the control room of Facility 7. It was buried 3 kilometers beneath the Sahara Desert. On paper, it did not exist. In reality, it was the heart of Earth's greatest secret. She was 62 years old now. Her hair was gray and cut short. Her eyes were sharp and missed nothing. She had spent her entire adult life fighting a war that the enemy did not know existed, the Whisper War. Around her, hundreds of analysts worked at their stations. Screens showed data from across the galaxy: communications, intercepts, ship movements, political intelligence. 30 years of careful watching had built the most complete picture of the Concord that had ever existed. "Status report," Lisa said. Colonel James Okonkwo approached with a tablet. He was her second in command, a brilliant man who had given up a normal life to serve in the shadows. "Network penetration is at 94%, he said. "We have access to Kethari Hive communications, Slith diplomatic channels, Gorath mining schedules, and Morathi scientific databases. The only species we have not fully compromised is the Trellix, and that is because their energy-based communication is still being decoded." Lissa nodded. "The Buenos Aires team? They cracked the Kethari Hive network encryption 12 years ago. The Kethari still do not know. They believe humans are too primitive to understand their quantum-entangled signals. They believe many things about humans that are not true." She walked to a large display showing Earth. But it was not the Earth that the Concord knew about. It was the real Earth, the hidden Earth. The Concord believed Earth had a population of 8 billion. The real number was 16 billion. The extra 8 billion lived in underground cities, orbital stations, and lunar colonies that were shielded from Concord sensors. The Concord believed Earth had no military fleet. In reality, the Mare Imbrium shipyards on the dark side of the moon had been building warships for 25 years. 300 vessels now waited in hidden hangars, each one more advanced than anything the Concord possessed. The Concord believed humans were using deprecated technology that was centuries behind current standards. In reality, Earth's scientists had reverse-engineered everything they could get their hands on, and then they had improved it. "Show me the Prometheus drive," Lissa said. The screen changed to show a technical schematic. It was humanity's greatest achievement, a faster-than-light engine that was 30% more efficient than the best Concord design. Dr. Sarah Webb had led the team that created it before her death 5 years ago. Her legacy would change the galaxy. Production status: all 300 ships have been retrofitted with Prometheus drives, Okonkwo reported. We can outrun anything in the Concorde fleet. Lissa allowed herself a small smile. 30 years of patience, 30 years of pretending to be weak. It was almost time, but there was still work to do. She turned to another screen. This one showed the positions of human workers throughout conquered space. There were millions of them. Cleaning crews on space stations, cargo haulers on trade routes, translators in diplomatic offices, engineers in maintenance departments. The Concord saw servants. Lissa saw spies. Every human worker was part of the network. They watched, they listened, they reported. They copied data and sent it home through channels the Concorde could not detect. They were invisible because the Concorde had decided they were unimportant. Any updates from Station Kethar Prime? Lysa asked. Yes. Commander. Okonkwo pulled up a new file. Agent Reyes in the maintenance department has identified a vulnerability in their planetary defense grid, a software flaw that would allow us to disable their shields for approximately 30 seconds. Useful. File it with the others. This was how the Whisper War worked. No battles, no confrontations. Just watching, learning, and waiting. Building a database of weaknesses that could be exploited when the time came. A young analyst approached. Her name was Lieutenant Priya Sharma. She was one of the brightest minds in the facility. Commander, we have intercepted something unusual, she said. A Concorde emergency broadcast. All channels, all species. Lissa felt a cold sensation in her stomach. Show me. The main screen lit up with the face of Ambassador Vorath. He looked older now. His black plates had faded to gray in places, but his compound eyes were filled with something Lissa had never seen in him before. Fear. This is an emergency broadcast to all Concorde member species, Vorath said. The Vex Dominion has launched a full-scale invasion of Concorde territory. The Outer Rim colonies have fallen. The Vex are advancing toward the core systems. All military forces are ordered to mobilize immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. The broadcast ended. The control room was silent. Lissa had heard of the Vex. They were a hostile empire beyond the borders of conquered space. The Conquered had been fighting small skirmishes with them for centuries, but a full invasion was something else entirely. What do we know about the Vex? She asked. Okonkwo pulled up a file. Biomechanical hybrid species. Their ships and soldiers are partially organic, partially machine. They can adapt to new threats quickly. They regenerate from damage. They do not negotiate. They do not take prisoners. They consume other species and add their biological material to their own. How strong are they? Unknown. The Concorde has kept most information about the Vex classified, but based on what we have gathered, they are significantly more powerful than any single Concorde species. Lissa stared at the screen. This changed everything. For 30 years, she had been planning for a conflict with the Concorde. Now there was a new enemy. A worse enemy. Show me the invasion routes, she said. A map of the galaxy appeared. Red arrows showed the Vex advance. They were moving fast. Impossibly fast. In 3 weeks, they had conquered territory that had taken the Concorde centuries to colonize. At this rate, they will reach the core systems in 6 months, Okonkwo said. Earth is in the Outer Rim. We might have a year before they reach us, assuming the Concorde slows them down at all. Lissa walked to the window. There was no view, of course. They were underground, but the window displayed a feed from a satellite in orbit. She could see the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vex were coming. A species that made the Concorde look friendly. A species that did not want to manage humanity. A species that wanted to consume it. What are your orders, Commander? Okonkwo asked. Lissa thought for a long moment. The plan had always been to wait, to build strength quietly, until humanity was ready to demand respect, to reveal their true capabilities on their own terms. But the Vex changed the equation. If the Concorde fell, humanity would be alone against an enemy they knew almost nothing about, an enemy that was already proving unstoppable. Continue all intelligence operations, she said finally. I want everything we can get on the Vex. Biology, technology, tactics, weaknesses, everything. And the fleet? Begin moving ships to forward positions. Keep them hidden, but ready. If the Concorde falls, we need to be able to defend Earth. What about the Concorde? Should we help them? Lissa turned back to the room. Every analyst was looking at her, waiting for her decision. Not yet, she said. We watch. We wait. We see how this develops. The Concord treated us like primitives for 30 years. Let them fight their own war for now. It was a cold decision. Lissa knew that. Billions of aliens might die while humanity watched from the shadows. But she had a duty. Her duty was to Earth. Her duty was to humanity. And right now, the best way to protect humanity was to learn everything possible about this new enemy. There is something else, Commander, Lieutenant Sharma said quietly. Something we found in the Concord databases last month. We did not think it was important until now. What is it? A report from Concord scientists about why Death World species rarely join the galactic community. She paused. According to the report, Death World species tend to develop certain traits: extreme aggression, persistence, adaptability, the ability to survive anything. We knew that already. Yes, but here is the part we missed. Sharma pulled up the relevant section. The report says that Death World species are valuable during times of crisis. When the galaxy faces existential threats, Death World species often become the difference between survival and extinction. The Concord has records of 3 previous galactic crises. Each time, a Death World species played a key role in defeating the threat. Lissa read the report. Her eyes narrowed. They knew, she said softly. They knew Death World species were valuable. They kept us weak on purpose. They did not want us to become powerful enough to challenge them, but they kept us around in case they needed us. Insurance, Okonkwo said. We were their insurance policy, and now their insurance policy might have to pay out. Lissa smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just realized that the rules of the game had changed. Continue all operations, she said, but add a new priority. I want to know everything about the previous galactic crises, how they started, how they ended, and exactly what role the Death World species played. She walked back to her station. The war with the Vex was coming. The Concord might fall, and when it did, humanity would have a choice to make: stay hidden and hope the Vex did not find them, or step out of the shadows and show the galaxy what Earth had been hiding for 30 years. Lissa already knew which choice she would make. She had known since the day Ambassador Vorath looked at humanity and saw nothing but weakness. He was about to learn how wrong he had been. But first, the Vex had to come closer. First, the Concord had to fail. First, the galaxy had to become desperate enough to accept help from the primitives. Then humanity would move. And when they did, nothing would ever be the same. The Whisper War had been about patience, about watching, about waiting. But every war eventually moves from the shadows into the light. That moment was coming. Lissa could feel it, and she was ready. In the hidden shipyards of the moon, 300 warships waited. In the underground cities of Earth, 8 billion hidden citizens trained for war. In the intelligence facilities around the world, analysts worked day and night to learn everything about the enemy. The Concord had dismissed humans as weak. The Vex did not know humans existed. Both of them were about to receive an education. Humanity had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. They had built weapons the galaxy had never seen. They had developed strategies that no alien species had ever conceived. They had turned every weakness into a strength and every disadvantage into an opportunity. The Vex were coming, and they had no idea what was waiting for them on a small blue planet in the outer rim, a death world, a primitive species, a civilization that the Concord had written off as irrelevant, the greatest mistake the galaxy had ever made. Lissa looked at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, the Vex were advancing. Somewhere out there, the Concord was falling. And somewhere out there, the future of the galaxy was being decided. She had work to do. The Whisper War was ending. But the real war was just about to begin. The Concord was dying. Ambassador Vorath stood in the emergency council chamber on Station Central, the heart of Concord government. Around him, representatives of the 12-member species argued and screamed and blamed each other. The chamber that had seen 10,000 years of civilization was falling into chaos. The holographic display in the center of the room told the story. Red zones covered nearly half the galaxy map. Vex territory, conquered space, dead worlds. The Slith homeworld had fallen 3 weeks ago. 2 billion serpentine beings, consumed by the Vex or scattered as refugees. The Gorath mining colonies had been overrun. The Morathi scientific outposts had gone silent one by one. And the Vex kept coming. We need to evacuate the core systems, the Slythe representative hissed. His scales were dull with stress. Save who we can. Find somewhere to hide. Hide where? The Gorath representative rumbled. His crystalline body cracked with anger. The Vex adapt to everything. They learn from every battle. Every world we abandon makes them stronger. Then we fight, the Kethari military commander said. We throw everything we have at them. We tried that. Vorath's voice was tired. The Battle of Nexus Prime. We sent 400 warships, the largest fleet in Concord history. The Vex destroyed them in 6 hours. Silence fell over the chamber. Everyone remembered Nexus Prime. Everyone remembered watching the feeds as Concord ships burned one by one, while the Vex adapted to every weapon, every tactic, every strategy. There must be something, the Veen representative said. Her echolocation clicked rapidly, a sign of distress. Some resource we have not used. Some ally we have not called. Vorath thought about this. His mind went to the forgotten corners of Concord space. The primitive species. The observer worlds. The planets that had been written off as unimportant. Earth. The thought surprised him. He had not thought about humanity in years. They were so far beneath notice that they had essentially ceased to exist in his mind. A weak species on a death world. Provisional observers with no resources. No fleet. No value. But they were in the outer rim. Far from Vex advance. Perhaps far enough to serve as a refuge. There is one option, Vorath said slowly. Earth. The human homeworld. It is primitive and worthless. The Vex may ignore it. We could evacuate there, hide among the primitives until we find a way to fight back. The other representatives looked at each other. The idea was humiliating. The great species of the Concord, hiding among primitives who could barely travel between stars. But humiliation was better than extinction. Very well, the Slith representative said. Contact Earth. Tell them we require refuge. They are observer members. They must accept. Vorath nodded. He moved to the communication console and opened a channel to Earth. The connection took several minutes to establish. Human technology was so primitive. Finally, a human face appeared on the screen. A woman with gray hair and cold eyes. She wore a uniform that Vorath did not recognize. Ambassador Vorath, the woman said. I am Commander Lissa Chen of Earth. We have been expecting your call. Vorath blinked. Expecting? How could they have been expecting anything? They were primitives. Commander Chen, he said. The Galactic Concord faces a crisis. The Vex Dominion has invaded our territory. We require refuge on your world. As observer members of the Concord, Earth is obligated to provide assistance. The woman smiled. It was a strange smile. Not friendly, not hostile. Something else. Something that made Vorath uncomfortable. Of course, Ambassador. Earth would be happy to provide refuge. Please bring your remaining leadership and military forces to our system. We will coordinate arrival protocols. Thank you, Vorath said. We will arrive within the week. The channel closed. Vorath turned back to the council. Earth has agreed. We evacuate immediately. The exodus began the next day. Thousands of ships fled the core systems. Cargo vessels packed with refugees. Military ships that had survived the Vex advance. The last remnants of civilizations that had stood for thousands of years. Vorath traveled on the command ship of the Concord fleet. As they approached Earth's solar system, he felt a strange sense of failure. This was what the mighty Concord had been reduced to, running to primitives for shelter. The human system appeared on sensors. Earth, a blue and green world surrounded by a single moon. Vorath had seen the files. 8 billion primitives, no significant military. Deprecated technology that was centuries behind Concord standards. And then the sensors started screaming. What is happening? Vorath demanded. The Kethari sensor officer stared at her console. Her mandibles clicked in confusion. I am detecting weapons platforms. Thousands of them. In orbit around Earth and throughout the system. That is impossible. Humans have no weapons platforms. I am reading them clearly. Energy signatures consistent with advanced particle weapons. Shield generators. Targeting systems. This does not match any human technology profile. Vorath moved to the sensors himself. What he saw made no sense. Earth was surrounded by a defensive grid that would take the Concord years to build. Thousands of automated weapons platforms, orbital stations bristling with weapons. And something else. Ships. Hundreds of ships. sleek and angular and unlike anything in the Concord database. Where did this come from? The Gorath representative demanded. The primitives cannot have built this. A new signal came through. Commander Chen's face appeared on the screen again. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Vorath. Please follow the guidance signals to your assigned coordinates, and do not deviate from the approved approach vectors. Our defensive systems are rather sensitive. Vorath found his voice. Commander Chen, what is this? Where did you get this technology? We built it, Ambassador, over the past 30 years, while the Concord was not watching. Humans are very good at building things when we are motivated. But how? You are primitives. Your scores on the evaluation were exactly what we wanted you to see. Chen's eyes were hard now. We showed you weakness because that is what you expected. We hid our strength because we had not yet decided how to use it. You measured us by your standards and found us wanting. You never asked the right questions. The Concord fleet was guided to a staging area near Earth's moon. As they approached, Vorath saw more impossible things. Shipyards carved into the lunar surface. Construction facilities producing new vessels. Training grounds where human soldiers practiced with weapons that matched anything in the Concord arsenal. The human fleet emerged to meet them. 300 warships. Each one moved with a speed and grace that Concord ships could not match. What is their drive system? Vorath asked his officers. It looks like our faster-than-light technology, but more efficient. Approximately 30% more efficient, the sensor officer confirmed. They have surpassed us. I do not understand how. Commander Chen's ship approached the Concord flagship. Her vessel was called the Endurance. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. All angles and sharp edges. A predator in ship form. Vorath transported to the Endurance to meet with Chen in person. When he arrived, he found himself in a command center unlike anything he had seen. Humans moved efficiently at their stations. Displays showed tactical information from across the galaxy, and Chen stood at the center, watching him with those cold eyes. You seem surprised, Ambassador, she said. This is not possible, Vorath said. 30 years ago, you could barely reach your own moon. Now you have ships that surpass ours. Weapons that rival our best technology. How? 30 years ago, we learned that we were not alone in the universe. We learned that the galaxy was full of species that were stronger and faster and smarter than us. Species that looked at us and saw nothing. Primitives. Weaklings. Irrelevant. She walked toward him. Despite being smaller and frailer than any Kethari, she somehow seemed larger, more dangerous. You asked us how we survived on our death world. Do you know what we learned there, Ambassador? We learned that survival is not about being the strongest or the fastest. It is about being the most adaptable, the most persistent, the most willing to do whatever it takes. You lied to us. Your evaluation scores were fake. We showed you nothing. We let your scientists test our civilians while our military stayed hidden. We let you think we were harmless because that was useful, and while you were busy ignoring us, we were watching you, learning from you, stealing your technology and making it better. Vorath felt something he had not felt since childhood. Fear. True fear. He had thought humans were the galaxy's most pathetic species. Now he realized they might be its most dangerous. Why reveal this now? He asked. You could have stayed hidden. The Vex might never have found you. Because we have been watching the Vex as well. We know what they are, what they do. If they destroy the Concord, they will eventually find Earth, and by then, they will be too powerful to stop. She turned to a display showing the galaxy map. The red zones of Vex territory pulsed like an infection spreading through a body. We could hide. Let the Concord fall. Hope the Vex do not find us. But that is not what humans do, Ambassador. We do not hide from threats. We eliminate them. You cannot fight the Vex. They adapt to everything. They destroyed our best fleets. Your best fleets followed predictable tactics, honorable combat, fair engagements, rules of war. Chen smiled that strange smile again. Humans do not fight fair, Ambassador. We never have. That is what makes us dangerous. She pressed a control. The display changed to show battle plans, strategies, tactics. The Vex expect you to fight like you always have. Fleet against fleet. Strength against strength. But humans did not conquer our death world through strength. We conquered it through persistence, through ambush, through poison and trap and misdirection, through being willing to do things that stronger species would never consider. Vorath studied the plans. Some of them made him uncomfortable. Attacks on civilian targets to draw enemy forces out of position. Biological weapons designed to target Vex, organic components. Suicide strikes using unmanned vessels. Psychological warfare designed to break enemy morale. These tactics are dishonorable, he said. These tactics work, Chen replied. The Vex have never faced a species that fights like humans do. They have adapted to your weapons, your strategies, your noble traditions. They have never faced an enemy that will sacrifice everything to win, an enemy that does not care about honor or tradition or rules. She faced him directly. We are going to help you, Ambassador. Not because we forgive 30 years of disrespect, not because we care about the Concord, but because the Vex are a threat to Earth, and humans eliminate threats. And what do you want in return? When this is over, humanity takes its place as an equal member of whatever remains of the galactic community. No more observer status, no more development advisors, no more being treated like primitives. We have proven what we are capable of. You will acknowledge it. Vorath considered his options. He had none. The Concord was broken. The Vex were coming, and the only species offering to help was one he had dismissed as worthless 30 years ago. Agreed, he said. Chen nodded. Then welcome to the real Earth, Ambassador. Let us show you what we have been hiding. She led him to the observation deck. Outside, the human fleet was moving into formation. 300 ships that should not exist. Weapons that should not have been possible. A species that should have been helpless. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. The Vex were about to make the same mistake, and they would learn, as the Conquered had learned, that the species which looks weak is sometimes the one that has not yet shown its teeth. The hunt was about to begin. The first battle of the human counteroffensive lasted 6 minutes. A Vex dreadnought was moving through the Caraxes system, scanning for survivors from the Concord colony that had fallen there weeks earlier. It was a massive ship, 3 kilometers long, biomechanical hull that could regenerate damage, weapons that had destroyed 100 Concord vessels. The human attack came from nowhere. 3 small ships appeared behind a moon where the Vex sensors could not reach. They were fast, faster than anything the Vex had encountered. They fired a single volley of missiles and disappeared before the dreadnought could respond. The missiles were not normal weapons. They carried a payload of modified earth fungus, a simple organism that had been engineered to feed on the organic components of Vex technology. The dreadnought's hull began to rot from the inside. Its weapons failed. Its engines died. Its communication systems went silent. Within an hour, the most powerful warship in the Vex invasion fleet was a dead hulk drifting through space. Commander Lisa Chen watched the reports come in from her command center on the Endurance. She allowed herself a small nod of satisfaction. Phase 1 is complete, Colonel Okonkwo reported. The biological weapon works as designed. The Vex have no immunity to Earth-based organisms. They will adapt, Lisa said. They always do. How long? Based on their previous adaptation rates. We estimate 3 to 4 days before they develop resistance to this particular fungus. Then we have 3 days to use it. Send the attack squadrons. Target their supply lines. Hit them fast and disappear. Do not engage in direct combat. The human counteroffensive was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Concord had fought the Vex with honor. Fleet formations. Declared battles. Clear rules of engagement. The humans had no interest in honor. They had interest in winning. Human ships did not form battle lines. They struck from ambush. They hid behind asteroids and moons and debris fields. They attacked when the enemy was vulnerable and fled when the enemy was strong. The Vex adapted to the fungal weapon in 2 days. So the humans stopped using it. Instead, they switched to electromagnetic pulses that disrupted Vex control signals. The Vex adapted to that in 3 days. So the humans switched to nanobots that infiltrated Vex systems and caused critical failures from within. Every time the Vex developed a counter to one weapon, humans deployed a new one. The Vex had never faced an enemy that changed tactics so quickly. They were used to species that found one way to fight and stuck with it. Humans had 100 ways to fight and invented new ones every day. General Marcus Stone led the ground operations. He was 70 years old now, but his mind was sharp as ever. He had spent his entire career preparing for a war that everyone thought would never come. Now he finally had his chance. The Vex are advancing on Keth Prime, he told his officers. The Concord wants us to defend the orbital platforms, stop the enemy in space. He pulled up a map of the Kethari homeworld. Most of the planet was covered in toxic swamps that even the Kethari avoided. We are not going to defend the orbital platforms. We are going to let the Vex land. Then we are going to hunt them in the swamps. His officers exchanged looks. The swamps of Keth Prime were deadly. Poisonous atmosphere. Acidic water. Predators that had evolved to kill anything that moved. Sir, one officer said carefully, those swamps will kill humans too. Yes, but we will be prepared for them. The Vex will not be. Stone smiled. It was the smile of a hunter who had just spotted his prey. Humans did not become dominant on Earth by being the strongest animals in any environment. We became dominant by being able to survive in every environment. The Vex have never fought an enemy in terrain like that. We have. Our ancestors survived ice ages and deserts and jungles. This is what we do. 30,000 human soldiers deployed to Keth Prime. They wore environmental suits that protected them from the toxic atmosphere. They carried weapons designed for close-quarters combat in difficult terrain, and they had something the Vex had never encountered before: patience. The Vex landed expecting to conquer a broken world. They found a world that fought back. Human soldiers attacked at night. They attacked during storms. They attacked when the Vex were feeding or resting or repairing damage. They never attacked when the Vex expected them to. Lieutenant Maria Santos led a squad through the swamps of the southern continent. Her team had been hunting the same Vex patrol for 3 days, following their tracks, learning their patterns, waiting for the perfect moment. They are stopping to regenerate, her scout reported. Damaged unit from yesterday's ambush. How many? 12. Standard patrol configuration. Santos checked her weapon. A modified rifle that fired armor-piercing rounds coated with corrosive compounds. Effective against Vex armor for approximately 2 weeks before they adapted. We hit them in 5 minutes. Rodriguez, circle around to the north. Chen, take the east approach. I will come from the south. When I fire, everyone opens up. 3 seconds, maximum engagement. Then we disappear. Her squad moved into position. They had done this 100 times now. Quick strikes, maximum damage, then fade back into the swamps before the Vex could respond. The attack lasted exactly 3 seconds. 12 Vex soldiers fell before they knew they were under attack. Santos and her team vanished into the toxic fog before Vex reinforcements could arrive. This was human warfare. Not glorious, not honorable, just effective. The Vex adapted. They always did. They developed sensors that could track human soldiers through the swamps. They developed armor that resisted the corrosive rounds. They developed tactics to counter ambush attacks. But humans adapted faster. When the Vex sensors tracked them through heat signatures, humans started wearing cooling suits. When Vex armor became resistant to corrosive rounds, humans switched to explosive rounds. When the Vex developed counter-ambush tactics, humans started using larger coordinated attacks with multiple squads hitting from different directions. The war on Keth Prime lasted 6 months. 6 months of constant fighting in terrain that should have killed everyone involved. The Vex lost over 200,000 soldiers. Humans lost 12,000. The Kethari, watching from their protected cities, could not believe what they were seeing. They do not stop, a Kethari military observer reported. They do not rest. They do not retreat. They have been fighting in conditions that would break any Concord species, and they simply refuse to give up. How? His superior asked. I do not know. They call it persistence. They say it is what allowed them to survive on their death world. The ability to keep going when everything says they should stop. Commander Chen received the same reports on the Endurance. The ground campaign was succeeding beyond her expectations. But the real war was in space. The Vex had stopped their advance. For the first time in the invasion, they were not gaining territory. Human attacks on their supply lines had disrupted their logistics. Human raids on their rear areas had forced them to divert forces. The momentum had shifted, but the Vex were still dangerous. They still had more ships than the human fleet. They still had the ability to adapt to any weapon. We need something they cannot adapt to, Chen said during a strategy meeting. Something that does not depend on technology. What could that be? Colonel Okonkwo asked. Chen thought for a long moment. Then she smiled. Fear. The psychological warfare campaign began the next week. Human ships started broadcasting messages into Vex territory. Not threats. Not demands for surrender. Stories. Stories about Earth. about how humans had survived ice ages and plagues and wars, about how they had hunted larger and stronger species to extinction, about how they had fought each other for thousands of years and never stopped finding new ways to kill, stories about persistence, about how humans would follow an enemy for days without rest, about how they would sacrifice everything to eliminate a threat, about how they never forgot an enemy and never forgave. The Vex were not used to fear. They were the ones who caused fear in others. But the stories began to spread through their networks. The stories about the Death World species that should have been extinct, the species that turned weakness into strength, the species that was willing to do anything to win. Vex commanders started hesitating. Vex forces started pulling back when human ships appeared. Vex soldiers started making mistakes they had never made before. They are learning to be afraid, Chen reported to Ambassador Vorath. Not of our weapons, those they can adapt to. They are learning to be afraid of us, of what we are, of what we are willing to do. You are teaching them to fear humans, Vorath said. No, we are teaching them what fear is. And once a species learns fear, it cannot unlearn it. The turning point came at the Battle of Nexus Station. The Vex had massed their remaining fleet for a final push into Concord Core territory. 3,000 ships against humanity's 300. Any normal species would have retreated against such odds. The humans attacked. They came in fast, using their superior drives to close distance before the Vex could react. They ignored the enemy warships and targeted the command vessels. They used suicide drones and ramming attacks and weapons that had never been tested in combat. And they kept coming. Ship after ship, wave after wave, taking losses that would have broken any conquered fleet. But they did not break. The Vex had never seen anything like it. Species that were losing were supposed to retreat. Species that were outmatched were supposed to surrender. But humans did neither. They just kept fighting. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Vex fleet was broken. 1,500 enemy ships destroyed. Humanity had lost 90 vessels. But more importantly, the Vex had lost something they could not replace. Their belief that they were unstoppable. Their certainty that they would eventually win. They had learned to fear. And a species that fears cannot fight at full strength. A species that fears makes mistakes. A species that fears looks for ways to escape. The Vex began to retreat. It started slowly. A few ships pulling back from exposed positions. A few ground forces abandoning conquered worlds. But it accelerated. Within a month, the Vex were in full retreat across the entire front. They were running from humans. The hunters had become the hunted. Commander Chen watched the reports come in. Victory after victory. World after world liberated. The Vex falling back toward their own territory. We are winning, Okonkwo said. I never thought I would say that. But we are winning. Not yet, Chen replied. Winning means they never come back. Winning means they never threaten Earth again. We have a lot of hunting left to do. She looked at the galaxy map. The red zones of Vex territory were shrinking every day. But they were still there. Still a threat. Still capable of rebuilding and trying again. We follow them, she said. We chase them back to their space. We show them that there is nowhere they can hide from us. We make them understand that starting a war with humans means the war never ends until we decide it ends. The hunt continued, and somewhere, in the darkness between galaxies, the Vex were learning a lesson that would change their species forever. There were some enemies you could not defeat, some prey that became predators, some Death World species that should have been left alone. They had found one, and they would never forget it. The last transmission from the Vex Dominion was intercepted by human listening posts near the galactic rim. It was a simple message, repeated on all frequencies, broadcast in every language the Vex had ever encountered. It said, "Avoid the persistence. Avoid the Death Worlders. Avoid Earth." The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. The Vex, a species that had conquered 100 worlds and consumed a dozen civilizations, were warning their own kind to stay away from humanity. Commander Lissa Chen read the message in her office on Earth. She had returned home for the first time in 3 years. The war was not over, but the major fighting had ended. The Vex were in full retreat, abandoning conquered territory faster than human forces could occupy it. They are running, Colonel Okonkwo said. He stood across from her desk, looking tired but satisfied. They are giving up worlds they spent years conquering. Just leaving. They are not giving up, Lissa corrected him. They are cutting their losses. The Vex are smart. They understand that continuing this war costs more than retreating, and they will not come back. Lissa looked at the transmission again. Avoid the Deathworlders. A species of biomechanical monsters had given humanity a name. Not humans, not Earthlings. Deathworlders. They will remember us, she said. For a very long time, they will remember what happened when they invaded our galaxy, and they will tell stories about us to their offspring, stories about the species that should have been weak, the species that fought back, the species that hunted them across the stars and never stopped. She set the message aside. No, they will not come back. Not in our lifetime. Maybe not ever. The victory celebrations lasted for weeks. On Earth. On the liberated Concord worlds. On the refugee stations where survivors of the Vex invasion had gathered. For the first time in 2 years, the galaxy was at peace. But peace brought its own challenges. The galactic Concord was broken. Half of its member species had been devastated by the Vex. The Slith had lost their homeworld. The Gorath mining colonies were gone. The Morathi scientific networks had been destroyed. The old political structures that had ruled for 10,000 years were meaningless. A new order had to be built. And humanity was at the center of it. Ambassador Vorath requested a meeting with Commander Chen 6 months after the war ended. He was old now. His black plates had faded to gray. His movements were slow, but his compound eyes were still sharp. I wanted to speak with you before the council meeting tomorrow, he said, to discuss what happens next. What happens next is that humanity takes its place as a full member of the new Concord, Chen replied. That was the agreement. Yes, and the Concord will honor that agreement. Humanity has earned its place. He paused. But I wanted to say something else. Something personal. Chen waited. 30 years ago, I came to Earth as part of the evaluation delegation. I looked at your species and saw nothing. Weak bodies, dull senses, average minds. I gave you the lowest possible score because I believed you were worthless. You were not wrong, Chen said. By your standards, we were weak. But I was asking the wrong questions. Vorath made the gesture that meant acknowledgement of error. I asked how fast you could run, how much you could lift, how far you could see. I never asked how you survived. I never asked what made you dangerous. He met her eyes directly. I have thought about this many times during the war. Why did we miss it? We are an ancient species. We have evaluated thousands of worlds. We should have recognized the threat you posed. Do you have an answer? Yes. Vorath settled back in his chair. We missed it because we did not want to see it. Your weakness was convenient for us. It meant we did not have to take you seriously. It meant we could feel superior. We looked at the evidence and saw what we wanted to see. Chen considered this. That is very honest of you, Ambassador. I am too old for dishonesty, and I have learned that humans value truth, even when it is uncomfortable. He paused again. I have one question. One I have wanted to ask since the day you revealed what Earth had been hiding. Ask. During the 30 years when you were building your fleet and developing your weapons and preparing for war, did you ever consider using that power against us? Against the Concord? Chen did not answer immediately. She thought about the years of hidden preparation, the discussions in secret bunkers, the plans that had been made and discarded and made again. Yes, she said finally. We considered it. There were many who wanted revenge for how the Concord treated us. Many who thought we should take what we wanted instead of waiting to be given respect. What stopped you? The same thing that has always stopped humans from destroying ourselves. We realized that cooperation was more valuable than conquest, that allies were more useful than subjects, that the galaxy would be better with us as partners than with us as rulers. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city of Geneva spread beneath them, rebuilt after the war, stronger than before. Humans are capable of terrible things, Ambassador. We have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. But we have also learned that destruction is easy, and creation is hard. That hate is simple, and love is complicated. That it is better to build than to burn. The Vex would say differently. The Vex attacked us. That is different. Chen turned back to face him. We do not start wars, but we finish them. We do not hunt species that leave us alone, but those who threaten us learn that we never forget, and we never stop. Vorath nodded slowly. I think I finally understand humans. You are not the strongest species. You are not the smartest, but you are the most persistent, the most adaptable, the most willing to do whatever is necessary. We are survivors, Chen said simply. That is what Earth taught us. Survive first. Everything else comes after. The new Concord Council met the next day. It was a smaller gathering than the old council. Too many species had been lost to the Vex. But the survivors had come together to rebuild. Humanity was represented by Chen herself. She stood before the assembled delegates and spoke words that would have been unthinkable 3 years earlier. Earth accepts full membership in the Galactic Concord, she said. We accept the responsibilities that come with that membership. We will contribute to the common defense. We will share our technology. We will work with all species for the good of the galaxy. She paused. But we also demand something in return. Not respect. Respect must be earned. And we have earned it. Not equality. Equality is obvious, and we have proven it. What we demand is honesty. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. For 30 years, the Concord lied to itself about humanity. You told yourselves we were weak. You told yourselves we were primitive. You told yourselves we were no threat. And because of those lies, you almost lost everything. The galaxy cannot afford lies anymore. The Vex are not the only threat out there. There will be others. And when they come, we cannot face them divided by comfortable illusions. We must face them together, as equals. With clear eyes and honest assessments, she looked at each delegate in turn. Humanity will be your ally, your partner, your defender if needed. But we will not be your subordinates. We will not be your primitives. We will not be the species you look down on because it makes you feel better about yourselves. The old Concord is dead. The new one must be built on truth. And the truth is that the species you dismissed as weak became the ones who saved you all. The vote was unanimous. Humanity became a full founding member of the new Galactic Concord. Chen was appointed to the Leadership Council. Human technology was shared across the galaxy. Human military advisors helped rebuild the fleets that had been destroyed. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the center of that change. 1 year after the war ended, Chen returned to Facility 7 beneath the Sahara Desert. The installation that had been the heart of the Whisper War was now a museum, a reminder of what humanity had achieved. She walked through the old control room. The screens were dark. The stations were empty. But she could still see the ghosts of the analysts who had worked here, the people who had spent decades in shadows, preparing for a war they hoped would never come. Commander Chen. She turned. A young woman stood in the doorway. She wore the uniform of Earth's new Space Force. Her name tag said Lieutenant Sharma, the daughter of Priya Sharma, who had served under Chen decades ago. Lieutenant. What brings you here? What brings you here? I wanted to see it. Where it all began. My mother talked about this place often. She said it was where humanity learned to be dangerous. Chen smiled slightly. Your mother was one of the best intelligence analysts I ever knew. She helped crack the Kethari communications network. She told me. Sharma looked around the room. It is hard to believe. 30 years of hiding. 30 years of pretending to be weak. And now humanity leads the galaxy. We do not lead it. We serve alongside the other species. That is an important difference. But they respect us now. They listen to us. They ask for our advice. Sharma hesitated. Was it worth it? The hiding, the waiting, all those years of pretending? Chen thought about the question. She thought about Sarah Webb, who had started it all and died before seeing it finished. She thought about the soldiers who had fallen on Keth Prime, the crews who had died at Nexus Station, the billions who had worked in secret to prepare for a day that might never come. Yes, she said finally. It was worth it. Because the alternative was extinction. The Concord would have managed us into irrelevance. The Vex would have consumed us. We had to become something more than what we were, something the galaxy could not ignore. And now we build. We grow. We become the species we were always capable of being. Chen placed her hand on one of the dark screens. This place taught us how to hide, how to watch, how to wait. But that was just the beginning. The real work is what comes after. She turned back to the young lieutenant. Your generation will not have to hide. You will not have to pretend to be weak. You will go out into the galaxy as what you really are. Strong, capable, dangerous when threatened, generous when treated with respect. The Deathworlders. Yes, the Deathworlders. The species that survived a planet that tried to kill us every day. The species that looked at impossible odds and found a way to win. The species that turned every weakness into strength. Chen walked toward the exit. Sharma followed. The galaxy knows what we are now, Chen said. They have seen us at our best and our worst. They have watched us hunt an enemy across the stars and never give up. They know that humans are not to be underestimated. And that is enough? It is a start. Chen paused at the door. The Vex are gone. But there will be other threats, other enemies, other challenges. And when they come, humanity will be ready. She looked back at the dark control room one last time. We were always ready. The galaxy just did not know it. They left the facility together. Outside, the sun was setting over the desert. The sky was painted in shades of red and gold. Somewhere above them, human ships patrolled the solar system. Somewhere beyond that, human colonies were being established on worlds that had never seen an Earth species before. The galaxy had dismissed humans as weak. They had been wrong. The galaxy had feared the Vex as unstoppable. They had been wrong about that too. And now the galaxy was learning what it meant to have humanity as an ally. A partner. A protector. It was a new era. A new beginning. A new chance for all species to work together and build something better than what had come before. Humanity had spent 30 years hiding. Now they were finally free to be themselves. And the galaxy would never be the same. Far away, on the edge of explored space, a Vex scout ship detected a human patrol vessel. The scout immediately changed course. It fled back toward Vex territory at maximum speed. The warning was still in effect. Avoid the persistence. Avoid the Deathworlders. Avoid Earth. Some lessons, once learned, were never forgotten.